From the historic dunes of Zandvoort to the iconic and picturesque Ardennes, of course, hello and welcome to one of the crown jewels of motorsport. It is Spa that's been hosting motorsport for 100 years in the world of motorsport, and we are getting ready for the second leg of our European road trip. It was a crazy round back at Zandvoort. It was also a crazy round back at Silverstone to open up the championship, but let's remind ourselves of a few weeks ago when we were racing on the dunes of Zandvoort. Highlights from Circuit Zandvoort on the second weekend of the championship. There was a poor start from the third row of the grid from Kai Darianani. There was a great start from our pole sitter Patrick Huizenrode, who would lead down into the first corner, keeping Deegan Fairclough at bay. There was also battling between the two teammates of Gianmarco Prado and, of course, Alex Ninovic for the Rodin team, with Prado coming out on top and holding on to third position. Big slide coming in as there was the struggling number 11 of Noah Lyle, just trying to keep Keanu Alazari at bay, and was able to do so. There was this excellent start from Flynn Jacks, the Elite Motorsports team, from further down the grid, was working his way up of quite a few positions on the opening lap of the race. Stefan Bastangiev had Jack Sherwood down the inside, and this contact from Sherwood would force him off the road, and then Lucas Fluscher was the next one to feel the wrath of Sherwood, who was starting all three races from the weekend from the rear end of the field. There was this little bit of contact coming in from Hugo Schwarzer down the inside of the number 4 Nikita Johnson, who would find himself up into the gravel trap. However, out through the final corner to win the first race abroad in 2025, it was Patrick Huizenrode ahead of Deegan Fairclough and Gianmarco Prado. For the rest of the field, though, they begin themselves into the second race, and again, it was an excellent start from our pole sitter in this one. However, this time it was Ninovic who was leading for the Rodin team. Deegan Fairclough had a poor start to the race, but was still able to fend off Reza Sawuthan as he would race his way down into the banked corner at turn 3. Jack Sherwood once again trying to move his way up through the order. A big move to the outside of Abbey, pulling in Rodin, was able to work his way a little bit past. However, a little bit later on, would struggle a little bit more for speed, and Stefan Bastangiev was able to work his way alongside as he worked the way up towards Sky Black. Huge lockup coming in from Hugo Schwarzer as he was battling with Lucas Fluscher, who had some excellent straight line speed and some excellent late race pace as well, as we had Keanu Alazari trying to get past Hugo Schwarzer out the back end of the top 10. Big move from Alazari down the inside as he was trying to fight his way through the ailing BRD car, and was able to work his way through into the final position inside the top 10. Out through the final corner, though, it was Alex Ninovic with his first victory of the season, ahead of Pat Huizenrode and Deegan Fairclough. With the podium in the final race at Silverstone and two podiums here at Zandvoort, it was Pat Huizenrode taking over the lead of the championship. And on to the final race of the weekend then. It was a poor start from the reverse grid pole for Kai Darianani, an excellent one for Will McIntyre, who was able to take over the race lead down into the first corner. It was Hugo Schwarzer, though, trying to make it 3 wide around the outside at the first turn, was unable to quite fill the gap. A big look down the inside, though, as they'd hurked their way down into the Hugenholzbox, and it was indeed the 33 of Hugo Schwarzer straight up into second place. A big moment and a big lock-up coming in from the number 10 of Reza Sawuthan down into that first corner, with a few teams and drivers struggling for grip. There was a big off, that one for Flynn Jacks. He'd end up in the gravel trap and would require a bit of a safety car. They'd restart the race, though, with Hugo Schwarzer working his way up into the race lead, and then in second place it was Will McIntyre. A big move down the inside from the number 21 of Gianmarco Prado would cause this crash at the Hugenholzbox, once again requiring the usage of a safety car. Once the race was back going again, it was Hugo Schwarzer with the control, trying to pull away from the rest of the field. Everyone trying to filter their way through, with a big move coming in from Stefan Bastangiev, straight over and up into the barrier. It will cause some more drama, with Hugo Schwarzer coming up towards the line to take a first victory in GB3, with Will McIntyre and Keanu Alazari across the line behind in second and third. A fantastic drive from Hugo Schwarzer. What a fantastic round of racing there at Zandvoort. Again, excellent races. Hugo Schwarzer with a great first victory in GB3. We'll be catching up with him a little bit later on in the pre-show, though. Let's focus on where we're at, though. Of course, Spa, it's one of the most iconic circuits in the world of motorsport, and someone aiming for a good round, of course, I'm sure all of them are. Nikita Johnson, who had a bit of struggles in the first race back in Zandvoort. Unfortunately, we have a bit of a struggle here in the first race at Spa as well. We'll be starting from the back of the grid in race number 1, but he's third for race number 2. We caught up with him after qualifying.
Nikita, welcome back to Spa, a year on since your debut here in GB3. How do you look back on the past 12 months in this championship?
Well, it's been quite amazing to come over here and do my half-car season in Europe last year, and then now starting my first open-wheel season in Europe. So I think it's pretty good. We had a best qualifying of the whole year last year. I think it was like 5th and 4th. So hopefully we can go do that again or better. But yeah, it's kind of crazy that it's been a whole year.
How are you finding things with the new team? High Tech, we know these guys have won championships before. They're right up there, links to F1 in terms of F2 and F3 and that sort of thing as well. So how are you finding things with the new team and how are you getting on with your new teammates? You seem to be pretty closely matched.
Yeah, we're all very close. I mean, it's one big family, of course, when you go to a new team always. So it's been pretty good. Spent a lot of days at the shop during March and April. I was basically in England living the entire time, so I think it's been going pretty well. I'm super happy where I'm at, and I couldn't have thought of anything better, honestly. So I'm really happy with this past 2 race weekends and now this race weekend with High Tech.
Obviously, you're still only 16, 17, but in your career so far, you've raced in so many different championships. You've done, I think, Legends, Formula 4, things like that in America, records here and there as well. This year, you're not just doing GB3 as well, you're doing Indy NXT, so you're getting experience in all sorts of championships. But how are you managing doing both championships and how are you finding things in the USA?
It's been pretty good. It's been a steep learning curve because Indy Next is fast car. It's between F3, F2 pace, kind of. It's got a lot of horsepower, big car, so it's definitely been a pretty big learning curve over there, but we've had a few top 10s, or been in the top 10 at least, and so it's been good over there, and I can take some of what I've learned over there over here and vice versa. So I think it's pretty good to go do a few races just to experience the new car, and it's just been pretty good to do a dual campaign again, but I think next year will be either full season here or full season and back in the US.
And just finally, coming back to Spa, you mentioned earlier that you got your best qualifying here last year and your pace has been looking pretty good in practice so far. What are your expectations and hope for this weekend? It looks pretty tight out there.
Yes, it's very close. Would be amazing to get my first win of the year. We're kind of lacking that. We've had a podium, so hopefully soon we can get a win. Qualifying is going to be tough with the tow. A lot of people are going to be trying to draft off each other, so I think the lap's going to be mainly who can get the right tow while still completing Sector 2 and not being at a disadvantage there. So we'll see what happens, and whoever puts it together the best will obviously be there. So we'll see what happens. It's good racing. Excited for the races because you could start 10th or 12th and still win. So I'm very excited for this weekend, as you can tell.
Well, the best of luck this weekend, Nikita. Let's see how you get on, and hopefully we'll see you on the podium again.
Thank you very much.
I think likely that he will get a podium in race 2 of the weekend. He'll be starting from 3rd position. He's got some incredible race pace. Unfortunately, though, as I said, a qualifying issue for the High Tech TGR team. They'll be starting from the back of the field, all 3 of their cars basically from the back of the field in race number 1. However, thankfully, Spa is a circuit you can overtake on. You've got the opening corner, you've got that incredible run up towards Les Combes. Why would I talk about it when I can show you? Let's have a little look at the Spa track map. Nestled deep in the Ardennes is one of motorsport's most iconic circuits. We've been around for more than 100 years. We'll take a look around the circuit then, that deep braking zone into La Source, that first corner, of course, beginning this 2-kilometre run through Eau Rouge and Raidillon up to Les Combes before they get onto the brakes and flick it through the right-left and then right once more. Dropping down the hill finally into Bruxelles before we get into Speaker's Corner, then through the fast double left-hander at Pune into Le Fagna for the right-hander at Campus, and then the flat-out right-hander at Stavelot brings us all the way down to the iconic Blanchimont. We'll get onto the break for the final complex of corners, the bus stop chicane, which begins the second DRS zone. Of course, the first of the DRS zones being on that run up towards Les Combes. 101 metres of elevation all the way around this circuit, all being climbed from the bottom of Eau Rouge all the way to the top at Les Combes. 19 iconic corners in the world of motorsport. That is Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. I mean, who doesn't love Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps? It is absolutely iconic. They'll be completely flat out from La Source all the way up to Les Combes, and that is 2 kilometres of absolutely foot-to-the-floor drive, and DRS introduced as well for 2025. We're going to see some great overtaking, I'm absolutely sure. Someone who will be defending, someone who doesn't have to do any overtaking, at least in this first race, is Alex Ninovic. Now, Ninovic took his first victory in race 2 at Zandvoort, of course, round 5 of the championship, after an incredible drive 5 to keep Pat Huizenrode, our new championship leader, at bay. He's qualified on pole position for the first race of the weekend. Let's hear what he had to say before racing began.
Alex, what a crazy qualifying session there, but at the end of it, your second successive pole in the championship. That must feel pretty special at a place like Spa.
Yeah, really happy to come away with pole today. You know, testing yesterday and this morning didn't seem that good, but we made quite a good improvement from the last test to quali, and yeah, we had good strategy for Q1 and managed to come out on top, put everything together and did it when it counted. So super happy to have the opportunity to start off pole for race 1 tomorrow, and also finishing 4th in Q2, which as well gives us a really good spot to start from.
Q1's a very strange session. There was yellow flags, there was red flags, interruptions. The session ended early. I guess it just goes to prove that getting a lap time in whenever you can is really important.
Yeah, exactly. Especially at this track, you know, everyone's trying to get a good slipstream, and you never know what can happen if there's going to be a red flag early. So, you know, we managed to get a good lap in at the start, which obviously counted at the end. So, yeah, super happy with how we planned it all out.
So you took your first win at Zandvoort a couple of weeks ago. We said back then it might open the floodgates. You've got a fantastic opportunity tomorrow to make that happen.
Yeah, we'll see. You know, we'll go everything tonight, make sure everything's ready, and starting off pole, we never know what can happen, but hopefully come away with the win.
And with some of the other front runners having really difficult sessions there, a great chance for you to blow the championship fight wide open.
Yeah, definitely. It gives us a good opportunity for race 1 and race 2 to hopefully make some gains, but you never know what can happen, and you know, we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Well, a great session for you, Alex. Well done, and let's see how you get on tomorrow.
Thank you.
It was a great qualifying session. Like you said, first position pole, obviously, in the first qualifying session. He'll be starting from 4th in race number 2. More importantly, though, for him, when it comes to his championship rival at the moment, the top 2 in the championship, he's second in the championship at the moment, it's Patrick Huizenrode, who's currently who is the championship leader. Now, he'll be starting from 3rd position in the race earlier on today, and then later on, it will be starting from 10th place. So the championship leader not having the greatest qualifying session of all kind. He did qualify, though, in 4th position in the opening qualifying session, so that would be where he'd start. However, there's been a 3-place grid penalty for Gianmarco Prado, who was originally slated to be starting from an all-road-in front row of the grid. Of course, we've seen some excellent pace from Gianmarco Prado throughout the season thus far, but he'll be having to start in a few positions lower down than where we would have expected. Let's catch up with him and hear what he had to say after qualifying in 2nd spot, but starting in 5th.
Gianmarco, one crazy qualifying session, one slightly more conventional, but P2 in both of them. That just goes to show how strong your pace is this weekend.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're up and down in practice, and to be honest, in those qualifying sessions, I was waiting for the call, through the radio to tell me boogity, boogity, boogie, let's go racing, because it felt like NASCAR, like everyone just going, stop, go. So it was a little bit, especially Q1 was crazy with the red flag as well. But yeah, I'm pretty chuffed with the results. Obviously here at Spa, it's really easy to overtake compared to the other tracks that we've been on, so it isn't as much of an advantage as the other tracks, but I'm still really chuffed with it, and really happy that I was able to make it work. I guess the next step's just going to be getting through those 25 minutes in the races, and just making sure that I bring the car home in one piece and up hopefully on the podium all 3 times. So yeah.
You've been delivering podiums, I think, at every track we've visited so far this year. You've got a perfect opportunity to do that again now, or maybe even go one step better.
Yeah, I mean, 2 steps better from both my other podiums would be great. But yeah, let's see. It's still a very long way to go in this weekend, and I think just keeping my head cool and making sure that I don't shrink too much on the race 1 podium if I get a podium. No, but yeah, in all seriousness, just keeping my head cool and just making the most out of the weekend. That's going to be the most important thing. So yeah, I'm just focusing on that.
And obviously with 2 P2s, it's fairly clear that you're really enjoying driving the GB3 car around here. Just how does it feel to be driving this new car around a circuit like this?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, there are a few things which we couldn't quite get right with the setup, but as we evolve with the car, it's going to be only getting better and better and better. So we've got to remember that this car's still in its first year of development. Next year it's going to be another step ahead, then the year after another step ahead. So it's only going to get better from here, but we're at a really, really good platform. And yeah, I mean, obviously thanks so much to Roden for helping me get to this position and making the car feel so nice. But yeah, overall the car's spot on.
Well, congratulations. Enjoy the spot-on car, and let's see how you get on during the rest of the weekend.
Thanks so much.
Obviously, great there to hear from Gianmarco Prado, but a 3-place grid penalty will drop him a little bit further down. He will starting from 2nd place in race 2 of the weekend, so at least there is that. And of course, is right up there in the championship. Has retired, though, from both of the reverse grid races this season. Let's talk about that championship and about where we are at the moment. Pat Huizenbode did take over the championship lead last time out with a 1st place in the opening race and a 2nd place in the 2nd race. Did finish inside the top 10 as well in the 3rd race of the weekend. He's got a 14-point championship lead over Alex Ninovic, who we have heard from, who'll be starting from the pole position in this race. Deegan Fairclough did have a decent weekend, a couple of podiums back in Zandvoort after a tricky opening round of the season at Silverstone. He sits there in 3rd position with Noah Lyle alongside the JHR Developments driver. He's in 4th position with Gianmarco Prado, who we've just heard from right there, and then 5th position in the championship with a couple of podiums to his name. Nikita Johnson showing some decent speed. He'll be looking stronger for the race a little bit later on, but that said, you can overtake round here, so hopefully he'll be starting from the rear of the field and working his way up. He's starting from 6th position with Will McIntyre. Freddie Slater, importantly, is returning this round. He is on the grid this round. It's Freddie Slater. However, we'll be starting from the rear of the grid in all 3 of the races, courtesy of an engine issue in the opening portion of qualifying, which kind of started off this huge drama in qualifying that saw basically the order being all over the place, and the high-tech TGR drivers all starting basically from right the way back down the order. Reza Zawuthan will be inside the top 10 of the championship. He's 9th. He did actually work his way forward quite a bit there with a decent round for the Argenti with Prema team. Had 3 top 10 finishes back in Zandvoort. Keanu Alazari, the final driver, inside the top 10. Of course, did pick up a few solid results back at the previous round of the championship. Now, one person who did pick up an incredible result in the championship, obviously back in Zandvoort, was Hugo Schwarzer. A fantastic drive for him. Saw him take his first victory in his GB3 campaign, and he's qualified quite decently around here. It'll be 3rd place. He'll be starting from 2nd from the front row in this first race. Let's hear what he had to say after qualifying.
Hugo, congratulations. P3 on the grid for race 1 after a really interesting session there. That's your best ever GB3 qualifying result. How do you feel after that?
Yeah, obviously very good. It was a very hectic qualifying session, but I'm glad I got some free air and managed to put that lap in.
You obviously took your first win in the championship last time out at Zandvoort, so you're coming here on a bit of a high, and if you continue that in that session, what's been the secret to your success in the last few rounds?
Well, obviously the team and me and I have been working really hard on the car just to get it in the right window, and I think we managed that for the first qualifying. So hopefully we can keep that going for the races.
A win at Zandvoort last time out, you've set yourself up really nicely to at least get another trophy here. How excited are you for the races here this weekend?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously Spa is known for some good overtakes, so hopefully I can do that as well and move up the order.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you mentioned that P3 on the grid, a bit of DRS as well once we get through the first lap, but we know how exciting the races are around here. You're in a really good position from P3 actually to get in a slipstream for the 2 cars in front of you.
Yeah, I'll definitely be going for it.
Well, all the best. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you afterwards.
Thank you very much.
Again, really good to hear from Hugo Schwarzer, someone that we've seen quite a bit in the GB3 Championship. Obviously, was a full-time racer last year, and then, once again coming back for the VRD team and looking really, really strong. It was a chaotic qualifying session, though, that saw him move his way up the order. Obviously, he's been gained a position courtesy of Gianmarco Prado's penalty as well. Got a lot of drivers starting towards the rear end of the field, including all 3 high-tech TGR drivers after an incident. And as I alluded to earlier, Freddie Slater as well will be starting back there as well. It's going to be an incredible race, I have no doubt. It's going to be frantic, and it's about making those moves really early on, getting those dives down into the first corner and clearing some positions by the time they get towards Les Combes on that very first lap. Keep your nose clean is going to be very critical, though. 2 races here on Saturday as we get ready for the first race of the weekend. So for the first time then, let's get ready to go racing for the first time here at Spa in 2025. You can feel the excitement building as we get ready to race around one of the most historic circuits on planet Earth. It is incredible. It is Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, ready to host rounds 7, 8 and 9 of the GB3 Championship in 2025. It's hosted motorsport for more than 100 years. And again, it hosts us here yet again in the GB3 Championship for our third weekend of the year. DRS zones on the start-finish straight, and of course on that iconic run up to Les Combes. They head over Malmedy and then begin the run through the roller coaster all the way down the hill as they go through iconic circuits and corners like Bruxelles, like Pouhon, like La Fagna, like Campus and Stavelot as well, out through Blanchimont and back up towards the line at the bus stop chicane. It is a tricky circuit. It's a brutal circuit. It is a great circuit for racing though. It's one the drivers love. Every single bit of the 7 kilometres of it. We saw a lot in qualifying, plenty of drama in qualifying, and we are ready to go once again. It's decent weather out there, you can tell. The weather's nice, it's not super windy as well. The drivers are working their way around where they'll be onto the grid. They're getting ready for their formation lap for the opening race of the weekend. This is going to be a tricky race for them though. There's a few drivers further down the field that are very much out of position. The likes of Freddie Slater starting from 23rd and last after an issue in qualifying. He'll be starting from the final spot in all 3 races. The reason we point him out, again, he was the victor of the first 2 races back in Silverstone in dominant fashion. And of course, leaving that Silverstone round, he was the championship leader. And absent from Zandvoort, he's back in the championship here at Spa. He's ready to race from the back end of the field. Pat Hoytzenroder's right up there. Of course, he is our championship leader by 14 points. It's going to be an exciting one. How many overtakes we're going to see into Les Combes? How brave are you going to have to be? That's the important bit. We see those big overtakes happening at Les Combes. That's where we'll get that 2 and 3 wide, especially with DRS, which will be active from the second lap onwards. Do remember though, if you've joined us in the GB3 Championship before, but maybe you haven't quite tuned into 2025 thus far, the races are slightly longer. Race 3s last year were 25 minutes roughly in length. Now race 1s and race 2s over a weekend will also be that same 25 minutes. They've had 2 qualifying sessions as well. Qualifying 1 has set the grid order for this. Qualifying 2 obviously for the race a little bit later on in the day. 2 races on Saturday, a rarity in GB3. So we can see the cars then working their way into their grid slots, of course, before they begin their formation lap. You can see the number 12 there of Alex Ninovic, our pole sitter. Alongside him will be Hugo Schwarzer in the VRD Racing car. Of course, for Hugo Schwarzer, it was a fantastic race, wasn't it? Back in Zandvoort, that final race had really good race pace. I thought for a second that Will McIntyre was going to have a repeat of his incredible race back in Silverstone, where he took the lead early on in race 3 and then ran off into the distance. Even after a couple of safety cars, was still able to control things for the elite team. Of course, back in Zandvoort, Will McIntyre took the race lead going into the first corner. However, it wasn't good enough, because out of absolutely nowhere later on in the race, with some really good tyre strategy as well, tyre conservation over the weekend and playing his cards right, that number 33 of Hugo Schwarzer was able to take his first victory. Promoted up to second position, of course, and up onto the front row of the grid, courtesy of the penalty for Gianmarco Prado, a 3-place grid penalty, dropping him just a little bit further down the order. Nothing too major, though. It's only a 3-place grid drop. Look, it's really not going to make too much of a real difference. There's a bit of a look into Will McIntyre. Of course, he'll be starting a little bit further down the order. At the moment, he'll be starting from 6th position. Kanato Lee there. Now, importantly, this driver here, got to keep his nose clean in this race. The reason I say that more so than most, that number 19 will be your pole sitter later on in the day. That hill speed car right there did an excellent job in the second qualifying session. Kanato Lee will be starting alongside Gianmarco Prado. So you've got to keep your nose clean, no major damage or dramas. Of course, I know there's plenty of time here between race 1 and race 2. But still, it's always good to keep your nose clean anyway. So, the engineers, their marshals and such have all moved over to one side of the circuit because the formation lap is ready to begin. And when they roll their way around the first corner, we'll update you with the grid. They'll prepare themselves, and again, mental preparation more so than anything else. Just getting ready for the formation lap, getting ready in their minds for the 7-kilometre run around the circuit to get into that right window. Temperature, tyres, even engine temps, brain temp, making sure that you're in the right frame of mind to go on the attack and do what you have to do. It's not going to be easy, especially considering, I've said this a few times, I said it on the track map, when you come out of the opening corner at La Source, it is 2 kilometres of flat-out driving all the way to Les Combes. It is an incredibly long run, and that's where you get those big slipstreams. That's where you get the big trains. That's where you get the big overtakes. And that's what you have to prepare yourself for, especially if you're third, fourth, fifth on the grid. You're on the second or third row. Genuinely, you could be leading here on the race down into Les Combes. So the formation lap begins, and you can see there the number 12 of Alex Ninovic off from the pole position. The Australian who finds himself in championship contention, along with his compatriots. Of course, one of the major things that was noted back in Zandvoort was how many Australians are right towards the front of the field. 4 of the top 5 drivers are Australian, and the top of those is Alex Ninovic. Alongside him on the front row of the grid is Hugo Schwarzer, fresh off of his first victory and carrying such high confidence as well. Patrick Huijsenbode, the championship leader, will start from third position, with Noah Lyle starting from fourth after a couple of dramas and a bit of a struggle back in Zandvoort. Gianmarco Prado was originally slated to start from the front row of the grid, but after a 3-place grid penalty, he'll be starting from fifth. Will Mack starting alongside the Silverstone Race 3 winner. Behind that, though, we'll get ourselves Kanato Lee in 7th position. Obviously, he'll be having pole position a little bit later on in the day. Kai Darianani had a few struggles with race starts back in Zandvoort. Hopefully, he'll have those on the uphill run into La Source. It's not that steep, but it's steep enough to cause its fair share of problems. Juan Puigway will start from 9th position alongside Jack Sherwood, whose failure to qualify back in Zandvoort left him with a lot of work to do in overtakes. He certainly put on a good show. This time, he only has to do it from 10th place. Here, Yamakoshi will start from 11th position, with 12th position being Abby Pulling, then Lucas Flusha in 13th. Frieza Sawuthan there for the Argenti with Prema. Had really good race pace back in Zandvoort, and again struggling a little bit in qualifying here. Stefan Bastantiev in 15th position with Dion Gouda in 16th. Of course, Stefan Bastantiev last week was racing at Alton Park in some very difficult conditions in GB4. Flynn Jacks had some great opening laps back in Zandvoort. He was starting from 17th position alongside Divi Nandin for the Chris Dittman Racing team. The final few rows of the grid will see Bianca Bustamante from 19th position with Keanu Alazari, the first of the high-tech TGR cars. An absolute disaster for high-tech TGR in qualifying. 20th position, 21st and 22nd, Deegan Fairclough and Nikita Johnson there. The final row of the grid, we'll be seeing him back there all weekend long, is Freddie Slater. That's an absolute shock. He had an issue in qualifying, meaning he's got to start from the rear of the field. That said, if there's someone that can start from the rear of the field and still have a quality performance, it's going to be Freddie Slater. Looking at those drivers back there, especially having Freddie Slater, Nikita Johnson, Deegan Fairclough and Keanu Alazari, all drivers that can finish on the podium at this level, they're all starting on those final rows of the grid. There is going to be overtakes galore, I'm sure, between the one thing, though, that they cannot do, they cannot afford, is to get too involved with their battles with each other. They kind of have to, if they're going to come through the field, they have to work through the field almost as a group. Or, they can't, if they're so focused, if, for example, Freddie Slater is so focused battling with Deegan Fairclough at the back end of the field over the wooden spoon, then they'll never make the progress they need to do if they're going to score some big points here this Spa morning. So, onto the start-finish straight they go then. And into position, it will be Alex Ninovic on that pole position. Of course, alongside him will be Hugo Schwarzer. And it is a very short run down into turn one of the shortest of the seasons. It is not long, but it's uphill. It is tricky to get right. And Hugo Schwarzer, I think, is signalling his intent immediately there on the grid. Already pointing over, already looking at the number 12 of Alex Ninovic, already ready for a good start. And he does get some good starts All 23 cars then about to roll into position. The final few rows, as you can see there at the back end of the shot, just moving into position as they prepare for an 11-lap race here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. In position then, your pole sitter, the green flag is waved. The pole sitter of Alex Ninovic is to go racing. The red lights are on. And for the 7th time in 2025, we are racing down to the first corner. It's not a good start from Hugo Schwarzer. You've got Patrick Huijtenrode there on the left-hand side of your screen in the white, pink and blue, making the move to the inside and taking over second position. It was a good start, though, from Alex Ninovic, who's able to lead his way through the first corner as they head their way through La Source and begin the 2-kilometre run up to Les Combes. An excellent start from Ninovic, who's pulling himself clear. Hugo Schwarzer, once again, is going back on the attack as he makes it side by side. There's no lifting happening between second and third position as a great move coming in from Hugo Schwarzer to try and take over second position. This will be 3 wide before we know it as the JHR Developments driver there on the furthest right of shot, that number 11 of Noah Lyle, is throwing himself back into the mix. Now it's 4 wide as Will McIntyre's come out of absolutely nowhere to try and throw himself into the mix. It's a big lead coming in from Ninovic, but a fantastic drive there from Noah Lyle to take over second spot. Will McIntyre got dropped back down into 4th, so Hugo Schwarzer is in 3rd. It's Ninovic leading as a big off in the background coming in, I believe, from Jack Sherwood in his XL Motorsports car as he works his way through Malmedy and dropping down the hill. I think Sherwood's dropped back a little bit. He was in 10th position on the start. That's Keanu Alizari in the bright pink BWT car going out wide as they head their way through Bruxelles or Rivage, whatever flavour you like your tea, as they head their way now into Pouilly. It's single file through the top groupings before we'll get the hill speeds there of Kanato Lee trying to fend off I think Yamakoshi. I think he's dropped back just a touch as Kanato Lee on the race start. Yamakoshi's got very aggressive. I can see Freddie Slater making some moves as well in his hill speed there, trying to get side by side and go around the outside. I think maybe even of Abby Pulling. We'll have to wait and see. Once they cross the second sector split, we'll get the updates on the positions. It's a 2.4 second lead, and it is a safety car being deployed and being told here around the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. So we'll have to wait and see if that one's confirmed. Certainly is. Race control confirm it. It is a safety car on the race start. Divi Nandan didn't make it over the second sector split. I think he had an off at Les Combes. So a first safety car of the Spa weekend. Do remember it is 11 laps or 25 minutes, whatever comes first. Normally one safety car intervention doesn't affect it too much, depending on how short it is. But of course, the high average speeds around the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps mean we're a little bit more open when it comes to that, because of course the 11 laps being the race distance is the same like distance in kilometres basically as you can get on every single circuit across the season. So there's confirmation of the safety car. We'll see it out on the circuit. Is Alex Ninovic then leading the race? Noah Lyle in second spot. Hugo Schwartzer's dropped back down into 3rd. Will McIntyre with an excellent start up to 4th position, but it was nearly second for a small while. Then Patrick Huijtenrode in 5th, Gianmarco Prado in 6th, Kai Darianani in 7th, Wampu Shui in 8th position with Lucas Fluscher. And there is confirmation. That is the one of the JHR Developments drivers, and that indeed will be the number 17 of Divi Nandan. Off the road, and that is some pretty big damage to the front right-hand side. Now, if there's damage to the front right of someone, I'm looking for someone to have damage to the rear left as well. Could that be Flynn Jacks down in 22nd position after starting from 17th? We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, the safety crew straight over to check to make sure that everything's right. And everyone watching onto the broadcast, hello. Obviously, all those down in pit lane trying to keep an eye on the race to see exactly what's going on. This is the high-tech TGR team keeping an eye on things. Ready for a pit stop just in case there's any dramas or any punctures. That said, the inclement weather, if you were joining us for the GB3 Championship 1 week ago, weirdly enough, it's not here at Spa. Normally we have big drama when it comes to the weather at Spa, obviously. I'm sure we are all well aware of that in the world of motorsport, but alas, none of that out in action today. It's just beautiful conditions out there. So yes, indeed, there is Ninovic through the shot then, leading the race. Noah Lyle, the JHR Developments driver, in 2nd position, then Hugo Schwarzer in 3rd. Let's talk about the movers and shakers then. So, those that have been starting from the back end of the field. Deegan Fairclough's worked his way up into 16th position after starting from the penultimate row, rather, of the grid. And then you've also got Freddie Slater up to 18th position. Nikita Johnson up to 19th. Keanu Alazari we did see off the road, unfortunately, going through Bruxelles. So he's not made the progress that his teammates have in that team. Drivers that have dropped backwards. Jack Sherwood, despite being, again, one of the best overtakers in GB4 in 2022, and of course, when he's been racing in British Formula 4, when he's been racing in Zandvoort here in GB3, one of the absolute best overtakers. And unfortunately struggling a little bit here with the start of the race. He's dropped back to 14th position behind this team's driver, Abby Pulling. You can see that the number 9 front wing. Here's a replay of the race start so we can really get a bit of an understanding as to what happened. It was a really poor start from Hugo Schwarzer, the grey and red car, the number 33, basically in the middle of the shot there for the VRD team, and just kind of couldn't quite get away. Lost second position down into the first corner, but still was able to go back on the attack and try and win. It's just that 4 wide on the race up towards Lake Com. Absolute scenes. It's completely wild, making it 4 wide. And if anyone joined for the World Endurance Championship around the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, obviously a few weeks back, there's that clip of the BMW hybrid, the LMDH, the hypercar, driving onto the grass whilst getting past some GTEs. That was basically Will McIntyre's dress rehearsal for maybe future adventures in the world of motorsport. To be fair, as we've always said, I know a lot of these drivers, they're eyeing up their potential chances to get into Formula 1, but that top level of motorsport now, it's wide open. There's so many places to go. I was actually having a conversation with Piers Pryor and James Bolden about this just last week at a very wet Alton Park, where the discussions were about all the places that you could go at the top level of motorsport these days. You look back 10, 15 years ago, and it was kind of a bit more like it was Formula 1 or nothing. Whereas now, you've got Formula 1, you've got the World Endurance Championship, Indy cars right back to the top. And, for drivers like Nikita Johnson, obviously taking part in IndyCar Next out there as well, and, doing a lot of driving. But there's a lot of places for these drivers to go. They've got bright futures ahead of them, and that's before you even start accounting for GT racing, Formula E. There's just so many places to go. And these drivers have some serious talent. They are going to make a name for themselves in the world of motorsport, and it all kind of really starts at this level where you really move yourself forward. Yeah, of course, you've got those levels that step slightly below, but this is where it's kind of now or never when you start making that real name for yourself. See, a few drivers have already made the name for themselves. Obviously, look at Abby Pulling, the F1 Academy champion. Had a great round back in Silverstone. Really, really good speed. Struggled a little bit back in Zandvoort and struggled a little bit in qualifying here. I think that was mostly courtesy of some of the dramas. We've had quite a lot of dramas in a bit of a broken up first session of qualifying that's dropped a few drivers a little bit further down the order than they would necessarily have expected to be. I believe Divi Nandan's car has been recovered and has been moved out of the way, and so the note from from race control is safety car in this lap. So we'll see the Alpine A110 make its way back into the pit lane at the end of this lap. But of course, we still have a few kilometres to wait. From this point, it's still about 4.5 kilometres to work your way. At least it's a pretty circuit to drive around, even under safety car conditions. Whilst that's happening, again, let's remind you briefly of the order. Alex Ninovich leading the race with what will be 8 laps left to go in the race. Here's the 4-1 I actually wanted to look at. Look at this from Will McIntyre there over on the right-hand side of your shot. I think it might be Riza Sawuthan at the back, that was almost trying the same thing as well. But the bravery, the unbelievable bravery to keep it pinned, to see it 3 wide ahead and go, no lads, I'm going to make this 4 wide. I'm going right around the outside here. Absolutely epic from Will McIntyre. Just brilliant scenes. Let's take a look then at the order. So it's Ninovich, then Lyle, then Schwarzer, then McIntyre, Huysenroder, Pradl, Darianani, Shui, Flusha and Lee, with Yamakoshi just outside the top 10. Riza Sawuthan there in 12th position with Pulling, then Sherwood, Bostanciev, Fairclough in 16th position with Dion Gowda. Freddie Slater with the fastest lap of the race, but that's under safety car, so let's not worry about that too much. Nikita Johnson and Keanu Alazari, the last points paying position. Bianca Bustamante in 21st position with Flynn Jacks in 22nd. And Divi Nandan out of the race at the back end of the field. So the safety car races its way ahead then of Alex Ninovich. and we prepare to go racing once more here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. 8 laps left ahead of us, ready to decide who's going to win our first race here at the legendary Spa. It's going to be a tricky one for Ninovic to hang on from Noah Lyle. Will he be able to do so? When is he going to go? He's leaving it as late as possible. This is Blanchimont, so there's only one more complex of corners. Is he going to accelerate and then brake before he gets into it, or is he going to leave this as the train all the way up to the bus stop? It's his call. I remember back in Spa in 2022, we had a very slow restart on the final restart of the race under the safety car. Drivers do like to leave it very late around here at Spa. We are back racing then. Ninovic leading from Lyle, from Schwarzer, from McIntyre, from Huysenrode at the top 5 as they head their way across the line. There'll be 8 laps left to go. It's the white and black Rodin car of Alex Ninovic across the line first. He's caught Noah Lyle in his JHR Developments car, napping just a touch. Bit of a look to the inside, coming in from one of the Argenti with Premers there, I believe, as the look was coming in for a potential that must be 56 of Wampu Shui. Just having a bit of a look coming down. Of course, he's got his teammate Lucas Flusha directly behind him, and then their teammate Risa Swuthen just outside the top 10 at the moment. It is Flusha feeling the pressure. Kanato Lee in his hill speed, the black and red car there, trying to go on the attack as they race their way up the hill. Again, more wheels dipped into the grass just a touch there as Wampu Shui just touches it just a little bit. Hugo Schwartz has been able to work his way through into second position once more ahead of Noah Lyle. Behind that's Will McIntyre and then Gianmarco Prado, and going straight on there is the 56 of Wampu Shui in the Argenti with Prema. He's rejoined at Malmedy, going side by side with Kai Darianani, and now he tries to fend off his teammate as Kanato Lee's worked his way through. So Lee's up a couple of positions this lap. Now it's Lucas Flusha who's trying to work his way past Wampu Shui, but could not quite do it. The Argenti with Prema, they're doing battle here quite a bit. Yamakoshi directly behind, and then it's the third Argenti with Prema car of Risa Swuthen directly behind that in 12th position. Into Buon then they go, flick it through the left-hander, and then keep it pinned through the second part of it. Jack Sherwood goes out wide in his Excel Motorsports car. A couple of other cars in the background running out wide themselves. I believe that might have been Deegan Fairclough. Just going out a touch wide. In fact, I will correct myself. That might have actually been Nikita Johnson in the all-silver high-tech TGR car. You can tell the difference between of course, Nikita Johnson's and Deegan Fairclough's car. Deegan Fairclough has a black top to the nose of the car where the rocket sponsor is. Meanwhile, the other high-tech TGR of Nikita Johnson is silver all the way around. The third one is bright pink. You literally cannot miss it. That is Keanu Elazari. So, a big lead coming in once again from Ninovic. Not quite as big as he had in the opening lap of the race, but it's Ninovic from Schwarzer, from Lyle, from Will McIntyre here, trying to keep Gianmarco Pradel at bay, and into the mix comes Patrick Huysenrode. He's dropped back a few positions at the start of this race as our championship leader, as he now rolls around in 6th position, does Pat Huysenrode. He's trying now to attack, to try and get himself back up the order. Kai Darianani going side by side in the grey, black and slightly orange car there as he tries to get past Kanato Lee in the red and black at the hill speed, but could not quite find his way through. Down the hill they go before they begin the big climb back up Eau Rouge and Raidillon. It's a really good start from Ninovic, who set the fastest lap of the race. He looked excellent on the initial start. He's looked excellent on the restart. So, into the DRS zone then for the first time. Let's see how many moves we're going to get now. Will McIntyre there, going for a move for the final spot on the podium. Noah Lyle going defensive on the left-hand side of your screen. It's Will McIntyre on the right in that distinctive blue, highlighted yellow and black Elite Motorsports car. Kanato Lee takes a lot of the curb as Kai Darianani gets around the outside in the number 88. That's Darianani then up into 7th position in his JHR Developments car. And there's confirmation, DRS is enabled. Kanato Lee coming straight back in the fight to try and take over 7th position once more, but Kai Darianani fends him off. Meanwhile, the sea of Argenti with Premers do battle with Yamakoshi towards the back end of the top 10. I believe it is still Shui from Flusha, from Yamakoshi and from Swuthen in that battle back there in 8th through 11th. So, plenty of changes, but there's no DRS happening between Ninovic, between Schwarzer, and then Schwarzer back to Will McIntyre. That's close, but might not quite work out in favour for Will McIntyre. In fact, by my eye, I think that gap has opened up to over a second behind the rear end of the VRD racing car. There's confirmation. It's 1.7 seconds from Hugo Schwarzer back to Will McIntyre. So Schwarzer's pulled out the gap The top three are all separated just a touch, and confirmation from race control, this will be a timed race. That safety car being out for a little bit longer has meant that we are now running to time in this race, courtesy of the length of lap around Spa, of course. So 10 minutes left to go in the race. From this point on, that should be 5 more laps, so we're only running a lap short on the initial 11 lap race distance. As once again a fastest lap comes in from your race leader, Ninovic. He's absolutely flying. It's a 2 minute 16.3 from Ninovic. That is about 0.3 faster than Schwarzer behind, and of course Schwarzer then faster than the rest of the field. Bit of a lock up there from Gianmarco Pradl in the yellow highlighted black and white Rodin Carlin. Rodin Carlin, my goodness, just a Rodin. Rodin Carlin has not existed for a little while. I'll correct myself immediately. But Gianmarco Pradl there trying to get on the attack of Noah Lyle. So, I will say, I think, yes, Reza Smoothen has dropped back behind another one of the hill speeds because Freddie Slater has worked his way into the mix. As expected, we were expecting him to run up from the rear end of the field as quick as he can, and in the background you can see one of those hill speeds going on the attack of another one of the Argenti with Primoz. That's Wampu Shui getting dropped back behind Yamakoshi. it's Flusha rather getting dropped back behind Yamakoshi. Freddie Slater will be the next one, knocking at the door to potentially move himself up into 11th position after an incredible drive thus far. I don't think he's going to be challenging the 18 positions gained by the epic drive of Deegan Fairclough back in the opening reverse grid race of the season, of course back in Silverstone, where he went from the back end of the field at 25th all the way up to 7th spot to Deegan Fairclough. But Freddie Slater certainly giving it a good go at the moment. This is Kanato Lee and Kai Darianani. Kai Darianani in the darker, sort of more charcoal grey and red highlighted car there. You've got the red and black there of Kanato Lee directly ahead in the number 7. In the number 19 in 7th spot. Bit of close battling still with Noah Lyle and Will McIntyre. McIntyre's closed his way up ever so slightly up to the rear end of Hugo Schwarzer. He's not quite back within DRS, but he is closing up to maybe the potential, and with roughly 4 laps left to go at the line, all things dependent on how this thing unfolds as we get the epic drone shots as they run up towards Blanchimont. This incredibly fast run, the second fastest part of the race circuit, obviously the fastest being up towards Les Combes. Absolutely pinned. Climbing up the hill, you almost assume this part of the circuit is actually relatively flat, but once you come out of Stavolo, you've finished the descent which began all the way up at Malmedy after Les Combes. That drop all the way down into Stavolo. Once you get through Stavolo, you begin the climb, which takes you basically all the way up to here at La Source. And then you drop back down the hill again. You climb back up at Eau Rouge and Radion. That's the biggest elevation change, of course, Eau Rouge, Radion, but then that big climb all the way up towards Les Combes. That's the big elevation change on the circuit. But of course, that really extended drop round the back end. Jack Sherwood's race, unfortunately, is going awry. He's dropping down the order even further, and he's now in 21st position. Make that 22nd. I think he's had a drama out there on the racetrack somewhere, or maybe has worked his way back into pit lane in the XL Motors car. Unfortunately for the 78 there, just a few too many dramas in this race. He didn't quite have the speed early on, and he's dropped back outside of the points scoring places. He's not even come through the third sector split yet, so I believe he might have entered the pit lane. So it's Ninovic leading then with 6 minutes and 30 seconds left to go in this race, and the safety car has been deployed for a second time then. So that will be to recover Jack Sherwood's car, so he's not made it back to pit lane. He's still stopped there out on the race circuit in the, what I'm getting told is the second sector is where he has become stationary. So we'll get an update there as we'll work our way through the second sector. Oh, it's not even the second sector, it's the out of the first. That's turn 1. Exactly. What's happened to Jack Sherwood there? He's gone for a leap and he's out of the race. Bit of a shame, but Jack Sherwood is out of the race with 6 minutes left to go. The safety car obviously will be deployed, and we'll hope that the marshals can get that car out of the way relatively swiftly in what is a pretty hot circuit, the Spa-Francorchamps. I mean, look, the car looks great for photos right there and then. Nikita Johnson was involved. Interesting. So there was contact, surely. 2 plus 2, surely. There's been contact between Nikita Johnson in the number 4 all-silver high-tech TGR car there on the right-hand side of your screen, and, of course, the 78 XL car of Jack Sherwood. Realistically, we've only got enough time for one lap of safety car if we were able to get this race back going. I'm sure race control and the marshals will desperately try and get that car in. But of course, you cannot rush it. It is a safety procedure, and the idea of rushing it, not a good idea. So Nikita Johnson also out of the race. So clearly the contact bad enough to drop Nikita Johnson out of this race. I'll be a little bit optimistic and say, thankfully for Nikita Johnson, it was this race and not the next one. This race, of course, he started from 22nd position, did Nikita Johnson, after the issues for high-tech TGR in qualifying. He'll be starting from 3rd position in the next race, will Nikita Johnson, a little bit later on in the afternoon. So, like I say, it's kind of one of those ones of every cloud has a silver lining. At least it's not that one. So we don't know how that one's going to unfold. We've got 4 minutes and 40 seconds left to go. And with the marshals requiring to clear a couple of cars out of the way, I can see this one ending under safety car with Alex Ninovic taking a well-deserved victory. But, you know, I've been proven wrong when it comes to this last lap shenanigans. So we'll have to wait and see as to how things unfold. The race order then is Ninovic from Schwarzer, from McIntyre, from Lyle, from Pradel, from Canatoli, from Pat Hoysenrode, your championship leader in 7th position. Although I will say, giving him all the championship leader, that championship lead will not exist. Because I'm pretty sure with the points at the moment, it would be Alex Ninovic taking over the championship lead. I will update you with that in a moment's notice, don't worry. It's obviously plenty of people around the circuit in the shade, rightfully so. You need to get right out of it because it is quite tasty out there. The rest of the order, though, behind Pat Hoysenrode, obviously the number 88 of Kai Darianani. Freddie Slater with the fastest lap of the race in the number 27. Yamakoshi in 10th with Wampu Shui, Fairclough, then Suuthan, Flusha, Gauda, Pulling, Alazari, Bustamante, Jax, Bostantiev, and then the 3 retirements from the race, as we can see so far. Johnson, there's Sherwood, who's in the middle of your screen right there, and Divi Nandan on the opening lap. We would be talking a little bit more of the very positive drive from Deegan Fairclough up to 12th position, had Freddie Slater's not kind of eclipsed him a little bit, from 23rd all the way up to 9th position. That's very, very impressive from Freddie Slater once more, just to show his speed, his consistency. The main problem for him, though, is he's going to have to do it again and again. Because it's certainly not going to be easy for him to do it in race 2. Might be a bit easier in race 3, actually. At least in race 2, when he's working his way through the order, he doesn't have those pesky high-tech TGRs around him to maybe thwart us on the opening lap, because they've actually qualified all right for the for the second race of the weekend. And in the third race, it's absolute chaos anyway. So who knows what's going to happen in that one. One of the thankful things for a lot of these teams, though, it's actually one of those things to touch a little bit, with the change of regulation when it comes to qualifying, with there being 2 qualifying sessions, and the race 3 grid order is set off of the combined session. So your fastest lap from qualifying 1 or from qualifying 2, like whichever one is faster, that's your fast lap time, and it's the top 12 of those reversed. For those drivers who had a terrible qualifying, Nikita Johnson's, they're still in the mix with the reverse grid. They might not necessarily start from the back end of the field. Well, they won't start from the back end of the field in race 3 of the weekend. So there's at least that to focus on. I think it's a great rule change to have the 2 qualifying sessions. So we've got an actual grid off this one, and it's not just second fastest laps as it was in years prior. It is a second qualifying session. We're getting note that there's a green flag, but I don't believe that is. I've got my live timing. I didn't get a note that the safety car is into the pit lane, but we might actually have a green flag here. We'll wait until we can see them race our way round. We are getting a green flag. Wow, I was not expecting this. I was getting ready to call the race as being over. But no, we do have one final 7-kilometre run then around the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. Oh, this is going to be very exciting indeed. Ninovic leading our way down into the first turn. Schwarzer behind, Will McIntyre on the podium. Who's going to be making those big moves? Of course, Freddie Slater is going to give one a go as he looks down the inside of Kai Darianani at the first corner. So it's up to 8th position as things get better for Freddie Slater. The time has ticked down to 0. It's confirmed as the final lap of the race. They head then through Eau Rouge and Rayon, and of course, already Freddie Slater is actually feeling a little bit of pressure from Kai Darianani, who he just passed. He'll be picking up the slipstream, but not the DRS. It will not be active on this lap, courtesy of the safety car coming out. Here comes Will McIntyre then in the battle for second position. He had some struggles when it came to his long run pace back in Zandvoort. No struggles this time by, as he battles with the driver who beat him to race victory in race 3 at Zandvoort. There's contact between the two, and Hugo Schwartz has gone straight on, as has one of the hill speeds. That was the number 19 of Kanato Lee. I think he also dragged over his teammate Freddie Slater, and it's all starting to kick off. Yamakoshi off the road in the background as well, as he picks up a whole load of gravel as he runs wide. Going there outside there is the 21 of Gianmarco Pradel. Through the middle of all of that is Pat Huizenrode, the number 5 championship leader, who I'm pretty sure right now would have taken the race ending under a checkered flag, because he's getting absolutely swarmed. It's Ninovic from Schwarzer, from Kanato Lee, who finds himself on the final step of the podium. Will McIntyre, after that little touch between himself and Schwarzer at Les Combes, dropped back down into 4th position, and now has to try and fend off this sea of cars directly behind him. You've got Noah Lyle trying to defend from Gianmarco Pradel. You've got the hill speed there of Freddie Slater throwing his way around the outside of the driver who stole the championship lead off him after he was absent. There's the don't worry about that dust being kicked up. That's just some of the basically it's there to dry oil and such. It's just a quick dry. No worries, no major dramas there, but one final overtaking opportunity as they head their way down towards the iconic Blanchimont, and then of course the braking zone for the final corner. It is going to be a victory for Alex Ninovic for the second time this season. It's Ninovic on top. He's going to be leading by 2 seconds, but who's joining on the podium in which order? Hugo Schwarzer takes the defensive line to try and keep the hill speed at bay. Ninovic across the line to take victory. It's Schwarzer then in second, it's Kanato Lee in third, and then it's literally the entire grid coming across the line in 4th spot, led by Noah Lyle. Will McIntyre dropping back to 5th with Gianmarco Pradel, Patrick Huizenrode, Kai Darianani, Deegan Fairclough. What happened to Freddie Slater dropping down a position? Yamakoshi up there in 11th spot with Sawuthan, Flusha, Shui, Gouda, Alizari, Pulling, Bustamante, Bustantiev and Flint Jacks. I was not ready for an extra little bit of racing in there, but boy was it worth it. That was an incredible drive and an incredible race, and a fitting end to our first race here at Spa. There'll be disappointment around the paddock, obviously looking at Elite there, who will obviously be a little bit frustrated with how things will have played out there. Obviously losing a little bit of ground that race. They were almost taking over second position, but a touch of contact between Hugo Schwarzer and Will McIntyre, and it was Will McIntyre who lost out. I'm actually quite surprised that there wasn't actually a puncture. That contact, you can get those punctures from those contacts, that awkward front wheel to rear wheel contact, and luckily for Hugo Schwarzer, he avoided that possibility and was able to hang on to second spot. So it's back-to-back podiums. Hugo Schwarzer, a victory in the final race at Zandvoort, and second place here from the front row. It could have been back-to-back victories, to be honest, but I think Ninovic was maybe a little bit too quick. The race results would see Ninovic then 2.3 seconds clear of Schwarzer, Kanato Lee behind, Noah Lyle, Will McIntyre. Deegan Fairclough did manage to get his way past Freddie Slater, so he's the hardest charger. He's the one that's gained the most positions. So clearly in those short bursts, as we saw from the start of the race, Deegan Fairclough can get aggressive. That said, Freddie Slater had made a load of progress. There must have been some mistake, incident, issue, something like that for Freddie Slater. He did straight line at Les Combes. And I think there must have been a little bit more to answer for in that second and third sector, because I think he was attacking genuinely for like 6th or 7th spot. A top 5 wouldn't have been impossible from Freddie Slater there from the back of the field, and of course with 2 safety car interventions maybe there could have been more, but that said, maybe the safety car interventions helped Freddie Slater more so than hindered. Obviously he'd like a little bit more race time, but as is the nature of this style of racing, that safety car bunches you back up, gives you more opportunities to go and gain some position. So if it was green all the way through the race, maybe it wouldn't have bunched up, maybe you wouldn't have had those opportunities to even move up inside the top 10. Alas, 'tis what it is. But for Ninovic, honestly, completely dominant race, absolutely unfazed by the drama happening behind. And the driver who took a victory in race number 2 back in Zandvoort, I think with his victory there, the 35 points that go with Pat Huizenrode down in 7th spot, we've got ourselves a new championship leader. Alex Ninovic for the Rodin team over the championship lead, heading out of round 7. Of course, next time, round 8, I like a little bit of looking at benchmarks and stuff in championships. After round 8, we will be 1/3 complete in the 2025 season. And that's the kind of bit you've got to think about, getting the championship lead and holding on to it. Getting the 1/3 point complete the championship leader. Halfway, 2/3, 3/4, and obviously that final race of the season being the championship leader then. It is wide open and plenty of drivers can do it. I just don't know really which way it's going to go in this season. It's so wide open when it comes to it, and it's changed quite a lot. Obviously, Freddie Slater holding the advantage after the first round. Pat Huizenbode looked like the absolute best back in Zandvoort in the consistency in race 1 and 2. What can they do about this guy though? Can they find a way of beating him after that drive here? Not so sure. The only major thing for everyone is that he has to start the next race from 4th place after qualifying. So, maybe that's going to hold him back a little bit. Starting from pole position, it was an easy drive for him. If he's able to keep that pace up, chances are, I think he might be able to do a little bit of copy and paste on that one and go full send once more. And maybe he'll be able to take a 3rd victory of the season. But what must it feel like to take a victory around such an iconic circuit? Winning at Silverstone, amazing. Home of British Motorsport. Winning at Zandvoort in those iconic dunes, must be incredible. When we go to Monza at the season finale, when we go to Hungary, of course, a Grand Prix circuit, when we return to Silverstone, Donington Park and Brands Hatch, all iconic circuits. But there is always something just that little bit more special about racing here at Spa. It just brings out that extra little bit. Let's head down to Hidden Top 3.
Alex Nenovic's second win of the season. Alex, congratulations, your second win of the season here. You won at Zandvoort and now a win here. What a fantastic way to start the weekend.
Yeah, super happy with this morning, getting the win. Starting off pole was quite nerve-wracking before the race because obviously this track is quite bad for getting really good slipstreams. So I was worried about some people behind possibly getting around me on the first lap, but I managed quite well and managed to stay out the front the whole time and had really good safety car restarts, and just overall was a really, really good race.
You said that. Normally on lap 1 here, the pole position driver comes under all sorts of pressure. That didn't apply to you. You just marched away. How did you manage that?
Yeah, I got an okay start. It wasn't the best, but then I managed to get a really good run out of turn 1. And then from there, I just obviously managed to stay out of the slipstream as much as I could down the Kemmel Straight, and then managed to stay in first at turn 5. And from there, I just led the way. So, yeah, super happy to have a strong start to the race.
And then you had to do it all again in the 2 restarts, and yet again you pulled away. Just a fantastic way to race that.
Yeah, the restarts were amazing as well, so it took a bit of pressure off me, which was good, and we came away with the win and the points, so yeah, super happy with how everything's gone.
When it was green flag, it looked like you had a fairly decent advantage over the rest of the drivers. That give you a lot of confidence for race 2?
Yeah, knowing that the car feels nice and I'm adapting quite well into the racing conditions, I'm looking forward to race 2 later on.
Okay, we're a little bit further down the grid for race 2, but let's see how you get on there as well. Well done.
Thank you.
And now for P2, Hugo Schwarzer, despite a late lap attack from him. Hugo, a win at Zandvoort, back on the podium here. You're making a habit of this one now.
Yeah, it feels really good, obviously now in the main race, which is obviously even better.
You had to survive a really wild final lap there. You had drivers all over you. How did you manage to survive that?
To be honest, I'm not really sure. I have to watch that one back. But yeah, I was up in the air twice, managed to escape it, managed to stay ahead of the cars or the pack behind, and then managed to bring it home.
When that was going on, did you think the podium was lost?
Well, all I really thought in that moment was let's try and keep this on track. Let's do the best to recover some places or maintain places, and that's what I did. But yeah, now of course the thought is what could have happened.
Unfortunately, you're a bit further back on the grid for race 2, but what are you expecting to be able to achieve there?
Yeah, quali 2 wasn't great. Just couldn't use the pace that we had, but I'm sure that I can use that pace now to get up the order.
Well, congratulations, a great start, Hugo. Let's see how you get on in race 2.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And finally, we'll come to Hill Speed's Kanato Lee, who a very interesting race for their Kanato. You started the last lap, I think, in P6 and you ended it P3. How did you manage to do that?
I just got a really good restart. Into T1, I had a really good toe. Just managed to just overtake everyone, kind of try to find the gap, and I found it in the end, and managed to finish P3. So it was good.
Plenty of drama on that last lap. There were cars looked like they were going everywhere. They all stayed in a straight line, thankfully. But how did you manage to avoid all that and get through them?
Yeah, obviously it was a bit messy. Obviously last lap, so everyone's going to send it. And I had a bit of contact, but managed to stay on track without any damage, and managed to find another position in the end and finish P3. So it's good that we were able to finish all clean.
And now a very exciting race too, coming up where you're on pole position. You showed your pace in that race by going from, I think, 7th on the grid to 3rd. You've got a clear track in front of you now for race 2. How much are you looking forward to that one?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I had mega pace in that race. So I'm hopefully I can replicate that into race 2 and just check out in race 2.
Well done. Let's see what you can get up to in that one. Let's see if you can take the win.
Thank you.
And we'll throw back now for the highlights of that race.
Partnered by the BRDC, and once again it was Ninovic leading from pole position. A slightly poor start from Hugo Schwarzer, as there was the attack coming into turn 1 from Patrick Huizenrode. There was great battling. Hugo Schwarzer was able to find his way through Patrick Huizenrode and was able to work his way past, but then we get 4 wide. Check this out, as Will McIntyre was able to throw himself into the mix. Straight to the outside he'd go, getting squeezed off just a touch by Patrick Huizenrode. Noah Lyle in 11th position, in the number 11, up to 2nd position with Hugo Schwarzer around the outside. Will McIntyre then would be dropped back down into 4th position before a safety car would come out courtesy of Divi Nandon being taken out of the race. A couple of laps behind the safety car, and there is the confirmation of Divi Nandon's cut. The safety car though would be back in, ready to go racing for the final portion of the race. Once we got back racing, there was plenty of side-by-side. Everyone was heading their way around. 10 minutes left to go in the race. Jack Sherwood, though, would have an incident with Nikita Johnson at the first corner. The spin, though, would once again bring out the safety car. We thought the race was over. Alas, it wasn't. The safety car would be in for one final run around the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. Bit of contact on the final lap between Hugo Schwarzer and Will McIntyre, with a couple of hill speeds kicking off over the Les Combes chicane. Onto the brakes and into the final corner with an epic battle for second spot. But ahead of all that, it was Ninovic winning by a comfortable margin of around 3 seconds ahead of the likes of Hugo Schwarzer and Kanato Lee. Everyone across the line behind that in an incredible battle here at Spa. What a race. Absolutely fantastic there. Alex Ninovic then, victorious. Hugo Schwarzer in 2nd position with Kanato Lee. Noah Lyle in 4th with Will McIntyre rounding out the top 5. But look at those margins 4th on back. Lyle, McIntyre, Pradel, Huizenrode, Darianani, Fairclough, Slater, all of that separated by less than 2 seconds across the line. Absolutely incredible as we see them race their way through. Again, brilliant race, such tight battles in behind that. But let's take a look at the podium. Yes, indeed. Alex Ninovic on top, the Australian national anthem. I have a feeling we might hear that a little bit this weekend, knowing the speed of those Australians. Ninovic, obviously Pradel, and of course. So, the trophies then to be handed out. John Cavill passed them over, obviously. Kanato Lee picks up the podium for 3rd position. 2nd spot for Hugo Schwarzer. And then the top step of the podium, it's Ninovic to take Another victory, his second one of the season, picks up one of those big old trophies for it. Superb drive. He will have to do the same thing from fourth spot, and Kanato Lee is feeling very confident indeed about his pace going into that race. They'll all pose for their photographs and get themselves ready. Mentally, there is not long between now and race 2 this afternoon. Kanato Lee, that driver on the right-hand side, will be starting from the pole position in that one. He did have some great race pace. He was talking about that in his interviews with Richard Randall. Maybe Alex Ninovic has got a challenger when it comes to dominating races here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. One thing that Kanato Lee doesn't have that Alex Ninovic does is the championship lead. Let's take a look at the provisional standings then, heading out of round number 7 of the championship. Alex Ninovic has the championship lead by 6 points. Noah Lyle in third position, obviously just behind Patrick Huizenrode there. Lyle being 9 points clear of Deegan Fairclough. A further 9 points back and we get to Gianmarco Pradel, with Will McIntyre there in 6th. Hugo Schwarzer in 7th after picking up yet another podium. He's moving his way up towards that top 5. Might well be able to move himself inside of it after a couple of good races. It's Freddie Slater then behind that, obviously the championship leader after Silverstone, and his return to the championship. He's in 8th position. Nikita Johnson in 9th, and Reza Sarutham in 10th position in the championship. Fittingly, in the number 10, Argenti with Prema. Obviously, we are not done here today. There will be more racing coming up a little bit later on today. 17:25 local time, that is around 4:30 here in the UK. Come along, join. It is going to be absolutely incredible. If this race is anything to go by, I think we're going to have a lot of fun. And then just the one race on Sunday morning for round 9 of the GB3 Championship, partnered by the BRDC. Thank you so much for joining. I've been Lewis McGlade. You've been watching round 7 of the GB3 Championship. We'll see you in a few hours.